There is a reason, a very specific reason why you are here at this exact moment, reading these words. This is not random. This is not just another video, another message, another passing scroll in your day. No, this is a divine interruption. And if you feel even the slightest pull in your spirit right now, if something inside you is whispering, "Pause, listen, this matters," then you are already feeling the hand of heaven guiding your attention. Because let me ask you something honestly, have you noticed how distracted you've been lately? Not just busy, but scattered. Not just tired, but mentally pulled in 10 different directions. You try to focus, but something always interrupts. You try to pray, but your mind drifts. You try to rest, but your thoughts won't quiet down. And the strange part, it didn't used to feel this intense. That's not coincidence. That's strategy. Archangel Michael steps forward in this moment, not softly, not vaguely, but with clarity that cuts through confusion, and he speaks with urgency. Pay attention. What you are feeling is not random. You are being distracted because something is about to arrive. You feel that. Something is shifting. Something is building. Something is closer than you think. And yet, right before it reaches you, right before it manifests, right before it breaks through into your reality, the noise increases. The confusion rises. The distractions multiply. Why? Because the enemy does not attack what is far away. He attacks what is close. You don't get heavily distracted when nothing is coming. You get distracted when something powerful is about to land in your life. And that's where you are right now. This is the moment most people miss it. This is the moment where they scroll past. This is the moment where they say, "I'll come back later." This is the moment where they get pulled into something else and completely overlook the very warning that was meant to prepare them. But not you. You stop. You listen. And that alone tells heaven something about you. It tells heaven that your spirit is still sensitive. It tells heaven that your discernment is still alive. It tells heaven that even in the middle of noise you can still hear the whisper of truth calling you back. And now, Archangel Michael is making something very clear. You were led here because a blessing has already been released in the spirit with your name on it. Not maybe. Not someday. Not if everything goes right. It has already been set in motion. But here's the part no one tells you: before a blessing arrives, there is almost always a wave of distractions sent to delay it, not to destroy it, because what God has for you cannot be stolen, but to disconnect you from the position required to receive it. And that is what this moment is about. This is your alert. This is your wake-up call. This is your divine notification that something is happening behind the scenes of your life. Something bigger than what you can currently see. You may not have the full picture yet. You may not understand why things feel off. You may not even realize how close you are. But heaven does. And heaven sent this message to intercept your distraction before it costs you clarity. So right now, just pause. Feel your breathing. Feel your awareness returning. Feel that subtle shift happening inside you. That sense of, wait, something about this is real. That's not emotion. That's alignment beginning. Because the truth is, you were never meant to stumble into your blessing unconsciously. You were meant to step into it aware, prepared, and spiritually focused. And this right here is where that preparation begins. So don't write this moment. Don't treat this like background noise. Because what comes next will reveal exactly how the enemy has been distracting you, and what you must do immediately to break free before the blessing arrives. Stay with this, because missing this part could cost you more than you realize. Type "I am aware" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2020 is now activating clarity around you. Listen closely now, because this is where the truth begins to sharpen. This is where what you've been feeling starts to make sense in a way that is almost unsettling, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Archangel Michael is not speaking in generalities here. He is revealing a pattern, a precise, intentional strategy that has been unfolding around your life, quietly, consistently, and with one singular goal: to pull your focus away at the exact moment it matters most. You thought you were just overwhelmed. You thought maybe it was stress, responsibilities, or simply life getting heavier. But what if I told you it was more organized than that? What if I told you the timing of your distractions has not been random at all? Think about it. Every time you begin to gain clarity, something interrupts. Every time you feel a surge of motivation, something drains it. Every time you try to step into peace, something pulls you back into noise. It is subtle, but it is consistent. And consistency reveals intention. Archangel Michael says, the enemy does not need to destroy you if he can distract you. And that is exactly what has been happening. Because distraction is more dangerous than destruction. Destruction is obvious. You would fight it. You would resist it. But distraction feels normal. It feels harmless. It feels like just another part of your day. And that is why it works so effectively. You've been pulled into things that don't truly matter. Conversations that lead nowhere. Thoughts that spiral without resolution. Emotions that feel real but leave you drained instead of directed. Even your time has been quietly consumed by things that offer no real growth, no real clarity, no real alignment. And by the time you realize it, your energy is gone. Your focus is scattered. Your spiritual sensitivity feels dulled. That is not weakness. That is strategy. There have been moments where you sat down to focus, and suddenly you felt the urge to check something else. Moments where you tried to pray, and your mind wandered in every direction. Moments where you knew you needed stillness, but you couldn't seem to stay there. That is not lack of discipline. That is targeted interference. Because the enemy understands something you may not have fully realized yet. Your focus is directly connected to your ability to receive what is coming. If he can keep you distracted, he can keep you misaligned. If he can keep you misaligned, he can delay your awareness. And if he can delay your awareness, he can cause you to miss the timing of what heaven is releasing. Not because it wasn't meant for you, but because you were not positioned to recognize it when it arrived. This is why the distractions have felt more intense recently. This is why your attention has been under pressure. Because something is approaching your life that requires your clarity. Something is coming that requires you to be present, not scattered. A decision, an opportunity, a shift, a moment that will not announce itself loudly, but will require you to discern it quickly. And if your mind is overwhelmed, if your spirit is clouded, if your attention is divided, you risk overlooking it. Archangel Michael reveals this with urgency. The closer the blessing, the louder the distractions. That is the pattern. That is the signal. And when you begin to recognize it, everything changes. Because now, instead of blaming yourself, you begin to observe what is happening around you with a new level of awareness. You begin to notice what is pulling at your time. You begin to question what is draining your energy. You begin to step back from things that once seemed normal but now feel misaligned. And this is where your power begins to return. Because distraction only works when it goes unnoticed. The moment you see it clearly, it begins to lose its grip. The moment you recognize that not everything deserves your attention, you begin to reclaim your focus. And the moment your focus returns, your clarity follows. You are not losing control. You are being shown what has been trying to control your attention. And that awareness is the beginning of your realignment. This is not about becoming perfect. This is about becoming conscious. Conscious of where your time is going. Conscious of what your mind is entertaining. Conscious of what your spirit is absorbing. Because the truth is simple, even if it feels heavy, what you focus on will either prepare you or pull you away. And right now, you are being called back into preparation. So do not ignore what you are seeing now. Do not brush off this realization as just another thought. This is revelation. This is exposure. This is Archangel Michael showing you exactly how the enemy has been operating so that you can step out of the cycle before it costs you something greater. Stay alert. Stay aware. Because now that you see the strategy, you are no longer under its control. Type "I take back my focus" in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 3030 is now restoring your clarity and attention. There is something you must understand right now, something that will shift the way you see everything that has been happening around you. While you have been dealing with confusion, delays, distractions, and moments where nothing seemed to make sense, heaven has not been idle. Heaven has not been silent. Heaven has been working precisely, intentionally, and in ways that your natural eyes could not yet perceive. And Archangel Michael is stepping forward in this moment to reveal a truth that changes everything. What you have been waiting for is not delayed, it has been developing. You see, the blessing that is assigned to your life was never meant to arrive in chaos. It was never meant to land while your spirit was scattered, your focus divided, and your discernment clouded. That is why it has remained hidden. Not because it was withheld from you, but because it was being protected for you. Protected from premature exposure. Protected from interference. Protected until the exact moment where your awareness and your alignment could meet it fully. There is movement happening behind the scenes of your life right now. Conversations you are not part of. Decisions being made that will affect your path. Doors being prepared that you have not yet seen. Alignments shifting quietly, almost invisibly, positioning you for something that will feel sudden when it appears, but has actually been in preparation for longer than you realize. This is why things have felt strange. This is why certain situations have slowed down or even stopped completely. Because while you thought things were falling apart, heaven was rearranging the structure so that what is coming can stand without collapse. Archangel Michael says, the blessing is already written. The delay you felt was the protection you needed. And if you truly absorb that, it will release you from frustration. Because what you called delay was actually divine timing guarding you from stepping into something before you were ready to sustain it. There are levels of favor that require a different version of you. A more focused version. A more discerning version. A more grounded version. And that is exactly what this season hath been shaping within you. The enemy knew this. The enemy could not stop what was being prepared, but he could attempt to keep you well aware of it. Because if you remain unaware, you remain unprepared. And if you remain unprepared, you risk mishandling what arrives. That is why the distraction increased. That is why your focus was targeted. That is why your attention was pulled in every direction. Not to destroy the blessing, but to disconnect you from the awareness needed to recognize it when it appears. But now, something is changing. Now, the veil is lifting. Now, you are beginning to see that there is more happening than what has been visible. You are beginning to sense that something is near. Not in a vague way, but in a very real, very present way. And that feeling is not false. That feeling is confirmation. Because when heaven begins to finalize what it has been preparing, your spirit will always feel it before your eyes see it. There is a shift taking place even now as you listen to this. Your perspective is adjusting. Your awareness is sharpening. You are no longer looking at your life only through what has happened, but through what is forming. And that shift is critical, because what is coming will not announce itself loudly. It will not come with a warning label. It will not arrive in a way that demands your attention. It will appear as an opportunity, a conversation, a moment, a decision, something that could easily be overlooked if you are not present. This is why this message found you now. Because heaven is not only preparing the blessing, it is preparing you to recognize it. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are standing at the edge of something that has been forming in silence, something that carries weight, purpose, and alignment. And when it arrives, it will make sense why certain things had to end, why certain paths had to close, why certain people had to fall away. Because not everything was meant to come with you into this next phase. Archangel Michael is not warning you out of fear. He is preparing you out of protection. Because what is coming into your life requires your presence, your clarity, and your readiness. And now that you are becoming aware, you are stepping into position. Do not underestimate this moment. Do not treat this awareness lightly. Because you are closer than you think. Closer than you have ever been. And the very thing you have been waiting for is already on its way to you. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 4040 is now aligning your path with what is meant for you. As this revelation settles into your spirit, understand this. Every time this message reaches someone who is on the edge of their breakthrough, a chain is broken that the enemy tried to keep hidden. This is not just a video. This is a vessel carrying light into places where confusion once lived. And right now, you have the opportunity to become part of that movement. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not just written. It is speaking directly to you in this moment. I feel led to say this clearly. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are planting a seed into someone else's awakening. This is your moment to act in alignment with what God is doing through you. Do not hesitate. Do not delay. Step into obedience and release your seed now, because heaven is watching your response and preparing your harvest. There is something deeper happening here, something that goes beyond simple distraction, beyond occasional lack of focus, beyond moments of mental fatigue. What you are experiencing is a war, a precise, calculated war, and the battlefield is not around you, it is within you. Your mind has become the primary target, and Archangel Michael is making this unmistakably clear. If the enemy can control your thoughts, he can influence your direction. And if he can influence your direction, he can delay your destiny. This is why the battle has felt so internal. It is not always visible. It is not always loud. Sometimes it comes as a quiet doubt, a sudden overthinking spiral, a memory that resurfaces at the wrong time, a feeling of uncertainty that seems to appear without reason. These are not random mental events. These are points of entry. These are moments where your attention is being pulled away from clarity and redirected into confusion. Think about how often your thoughts have shifted unexpectedly. You begin your day with intention, with a sense of direction, and then something small disrupts it. A single thought leads to another, and suddenly your focus is gone. Hours pass, energy drains, and by the end of it, you feel like you were busy but not productive, active but not aligned. That is not accidental. That is strategic redirection. Archangel Michael reveals something crucial here. The enemy does not need to control your actions if he can first occupy your mind. Because everything begins in thought. Every decision, every reaction, Every movement in your life is shaped by what you allow to take root in your mind. And if your mind is filled with noise, with doubt, with distraction, then your ability to discern what truly matters becomes weakened. This is why your peace has been under pressure. This is why moments of stillness have felt difficult to maintain. Because stillness is where clarity forms. Stillness is where you hear direction. Stillness is where alignment happens. And if the enemy can keep you mentally restless, constantly thinking, constantly reacting, constantly shifting from one thought to another, then he can keep you from accessing the very clarity that would move you forward. You have to see this clearly now. The battle is not just about what is happening around you. It is about what is happening within you in response to it. Two people can face the same situation, but the one who maintains clarity will move forward, while the one consumed by mental noise will remain stuck. That difference is not external. It is internal. It is rooted in focus. It is rooted in awareness. There have been moments where your intuition tried to guide you, but your thoughts overpowered it. Moments where you felt something was not right, but you talked yourself out of it. Moments where clarity was present for a brief second, but then doubt entered and replaced it. That is the war. That is the exact point where the enemy attempts to interrupt what heaven is revealing. Archangel Michael says, "Guard your mind, because it is the gateway to your discernment." And this is not just a suggestion. This is instruction. Because your discernment, your ability to recognize what is aligned and what is not, depends entirely on the condition of your mind. If your mind is scattered, your discernment becomes unreliable. If your mind is overwhelmed, your perception becomes distorted. But when your mind is clear, when your focus is steady, when your thoughts are aligned, your ability to recognize truth becomes sharp and undeniable. This is why the enemy intensifies mental pressure right before a breakthrough. Because breakthrough requires decision, and decision requires clarity. If he can cloud your thinking at the moment you need to decide, he can delay your movement without ever physically blocking your path. But here is where everything shifts. Because now you are aware. Now, you are no longer unconsciously caught in the cycle. You are observing it. You are recognizing the patterns. You are seeing how your attention has been pulled, how your thoughts have been influenced, how your focus has been divided. And that awareness changes your position completely. You are no longer reacting blindly. You are responding consciously. And this is where your authority begins to return. Because you are not powerless over your thoughts. You are not a victim of mental noise. You have the ability to choose what you entertain. You have the ability to pause, to redirect, to bring your focus back when it begins to drift. That ability is not small. That ability is the key to breaking the cycle. You are being called now to take ownership of your attention, to recognize when your mind is being pulled away and to bring it back deliberately, to create moments of stillness even when it feels difficult, to refuse to let every thought take root without questioning its source, because not every thought deserves your agreement. And the moment you begin to filter what you allow into your mind, the noise begins to fade. The confusion begins to lift. The clarity begins to return. This is not just mental discipline. This is spiritual alignment. And as your mind becomes clear again, you will begin to see what has been there all along. Type "My mind is clear" in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 5050 is now restoring peace and clarity within you. There is a moment that happens when awareness begins to rise, a moment where you start looking back, not with confusion, but with clarity. And suddenly, things that once felt random begin to form a pattern. Events that seemed disconnected begin to align. And what once felt like isolated moments now reveal themselves as part of something much more intentional. This is that moment for you. Because Archangel Michael is now pulling back the curtain on something you were never meant to ignore again. The patterns of distraction that have been repeating in your life. You may not have recognized them at first. In fact, most people don't. Because patterns of distraction are rarely loud or obvious. They don't announce themselves as problems. They blend into your routine. They disguise themselves as normal life. But once you see them clearly, you realize they have been quietly shaping your direction, your energy, and your timing far more than you realized. Think about the cycles you've experienced. How many times have you felt like you were about to move forward, only to be pulled back into something that drained your focus? How many times have you started something with clarity, only to lose momentum without a clear reason? How many times have you felt a surge of direction, only to find yourself suddenly distracted by things that had nothing to do with where you were going? That repetition is not coincidence. That repetition is a pattern. Archangel Michael says, what repeats without awareness becomes a cycle that controls you. And that is what has been happening. Not because you are weak, not because you lack discipline, but because the pattern remained unseen. And what remains unseen continues to operate without resistance. There have been emotional patterns as well. Moments where your energy suddenly shifts without explanation. Times when your mood changes in a way that feels disproportionate to what is happening around you. Instances where you feel drained after certain conversations, certain environments, certain interactions. Those are not just emotional fluctuations. Those are signals. Signals that something is pulling on your energy in a way that is not aligned with your growth. There have also been timing patterns. Pay attention to this closely. Distractions often appear at the exact moment you are about to do something important. Right before you focus, something interrupts. Right before you make progress, something demands your attention. Right before clarity forms, something introduces confusion. That timing is not random. That timing is precise. Because the goal is not just to distract you, but to distract you at the exact moment your focus matters most. And then there are the mental patterns. The overthinking that loops without resolution. The doubts that appear right when you begin to feel confident. The second guessing that follows moments of clarity. These are not just habits. These are reinforced pathways that have been strengthened over time. And the longer they operate without awareness, the stronger they become. But here is where everything begins to change. Because now, you are seeing it. And now, you are recognizing the repetition. And now, you are connecting the moments that once felt separate. And once a pattern is seen clearly, it can no longer operate in the same way. It begins to lose its power, because awareness disrupts repetition. Archangel Michael is not revealing this to overwhelm you. He is revealing this to empower you. Because you cannot break what you do not see. But the moment you see it, you gain the ability to step outside of it. This is the shift that is happening within you right now. You are moving from reaction to observation. From confusion to understanding. From being caught in the pattern to standing outside of it and recognizing it for what it is. And that changes your position completely. Because now, when the distraction comes, you will notice it. When the emotional shift happens, you will question it. When the mental loop begins, you will recognize it before it pulls you in completely. That pause, that moment of awareness, is where your power lies. You do not need to fight every distraction aggressively. You need to see it clearly. Because when you see it clearly, you no longer give it the same level of attention. And without your attention, it cannot sustain itself in the same way. This is how cycles break. Not through force, but through awareness. You are not stuck. You were simply unaware. And now that awareness is here, the cycle is already weakening. So do not ignore what you are realizing right now. Do not dismiss the patterns that are becoming clear. Because this is not just reflection. This is revelation. This is Archangel Michael showing you exactly where your focus has been diverted so that you can reclaim it fully. And once your focus is fully reclaimed, the path ahead becomes unmistakably clear. Type I see the pattern in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6060 is now breaking cycles and restoring your awareness. Now listen carefully, because this is where the tone shifts. This is where the message moves from awareness into urgency. Because seeing the pattern is one thing, but responding to it in time is everything. Archangel Michael is not only revealing what has been happening, he is issuing a clear and immediate call. You must realign now. Not later. Not when it feels easier. Now. There is a reason for this urgency. And it is not to create fear. It is to create focus. Because the window you are standing in right now is not permanent. There are moments in your life where alignment is optional, where delay does not carry significant consequence. But there are also moments, rare, precise, and spiritually significant, where alignment becomes critical. And this is one of those moments. You are not just becoming aware for the sake of understanding. You are becoming aware because something is approaching that requires you to be fully present. And presence does not happen automatically. It is a decision. It is a deliberate return to focus. It is the conscious act of pulling your attention away from what does not matter and placing it back on what does. Archangel Michael says, delay in alignment creates distance from clarity. And that distance is subtle at first. You may not notice it immediately. But over time, it grows. The longer you remain distracted, the further you drift from the awareness needed to recognize what is being placed in front of you. And this is how opportunities are missed. Not because they were not meant for you, but because you were not aligned when they appeared. This is why you cannot treat this moment casually. Because what is forming in your life is not waiting for you to feel ready. It is moving according to divine timing. And your role is to meet it with the level of awareness required to receive it. There are things you must begin to release immediately. Not eventually. Not gradually. Immediately. The conversations that drain you. The habits that scatter your focus. The environments that disrupt your clarity. You already know what they are. You have felt it. You have sensed it. And now, you are being asked to act on it. This is not about perfection. This is about priority. You cannot give equal attention to everything and expect to remain aligned. Focus requires selection. It requires you to choose what deserves your energy and what does not. And right now, you are being called to choose differently than you have before. There may be resistance when you do this. There may be moments where you feel pulled back into old patterns. That is expected, because anything that has been repeated over time will not release its hold instantly. But awareness changes how you respond to that pull. Instead of being carried by it, you begin to recognize it and step away from it. This is what realignment looks like. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is a series of quiet decisions made consistently. Choosing to focus when distraction calls. Choosing to pause when your mind begins to race. Choosing to step back when something feels misaligned instead of forcing yourself to stay in it. And each of those decisions strengthens your position. Archangel Michael is emphasizing this now because the next phase of your life will require a higher level of discernment. What is coming will not be obvious to everyone. It will require you to see beyond the surface, to recognize what aligns with your path and what does not. And that level of discernment can only function when your mind is clear and your focus is steady. You are not being asked to do something impossible. You are being asked to return to what you already know is right, to trust the awareness that has been building within you, to act on the clarity that is already for you. This is the moment where intention becomes action, because knowing what needs to change is not enough. You must move with it. You must respond to it. You must begin to shift your behavior in alignment with what you are now aware of. And the moment you do, something begins to open. Clarity becomes sharper. Decisions become easier. The noise begins to fade. And you start to feel a sense of direction that was not as strong before. That is not coincidence. That is alignment taking effect. You are not being rushed without reason. You are being positioned with precision. So take this seriously. Not with fear, but with focus. Not with pressure, but with purpose. Because this moment matters more than you realize. And what you choose to do with your attention right now will determine how you meet what is coming next. Type "I realign" now in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7070 is now activating focus, discipline, and divine alignment in your life. There is something you need to face honestly now. Something that may feel quiet but carries deep weight once you recognize it. You have not been without guidance. You have not been abandoned. You have not been left to figure everything out on your own. The truth is you have been receiving direction all along. But it did not come in the way you expected. It did not arrive loudly, dramatically, or in a way that demanded your attention. It came subtly, gently, repeatedly. And because of that, you almost missed it. Archangel Michael steps forward here with a tone that is not harsh, but deeply direct. He says the voice of guidance is not absent. It is often overshadowed. And that overshadowing is what has made it difficult for you to recognize what has been happening. Think back for a moment. There have been instances where something inside you said, pause. Moments where you felt a quiet nudge to step back, to wait, to not respond immediately. Times when you sensed that something was not right, even though you could not logically explain it. Those were not random instincts. Those were not coincidences. It was guidance. There were also moments where clarity came suddenly, almost out of nowhere. A realization that felt sharp and undeniable. A thought that seemed to cut through confusion for just a second. But then it faded. It was replaced by overthinking, by doubt, by distraction. And eventually, it felt like that clarity was gone. But it was not gone. It was interrupted. You have to understand this clearly. The voice of guidance rarely competes with noise. It does not force itself. It does not overwhelm your mind. It presents itself, and then it waits. And if your attention is divided, if your mind is occupied, if your focus is scattered, it becomes easy to overlook. This is why the distractions were so effective. Not because they were powerful on their own, but because they created enough noise to drown out what was already trying to reach you. The guidance did not stop. Your ability to hear it was simply reduced. Archangel Michael reveals something important here. You were not disconnected. You were distracted. And that distinction matters. Because if you believe you were disconnected, you may feel like you need to rebuild something from the beginning. But if you understand that you were distracted, then you realize the connection has been there the entire time. It simply needs your attention again. There have been repeated signals as well. Patterns that tried to guide you. Situations that felt familiar in a way that made you pause. people who said things that carried more meaning than they realized, even moments of discomfort that were trying to redirect you. These were not random occurrences. These were layers of communication, attempting to reach you in different ways when one form was not fully received. And now, as you listen to this, something is happening. Those past moments are starting to make sense. You are beginning to connect what you felt before with what you are understanding now. And that is not accidental. That is the voice becoming clearer again. This is the shift. This is where everything begins to change. Because now, you are not just hearing this message externally. You are recognizing something internally. You are realizing that you have felt this before, that you have been guided before, that you have known certain things without being able to explain them fully, and that realization restores your trust in your own awareness. Archangel Michael is not asking you to search for something new. He is asking you to return to what has already been present, to slow down enough to notice it, to create space where it can come through clearly again. Because the guidance you need for what is coming next is already available. It does not need to be created. It needs to be heard. But hearing requires stillness. It requires intention. It requires you to step away from the constant input that fills your mind and to allow a moment of quiet to exist without immediately filling it. This may feel unfamiliar at first. It may feel uncomfortable. Because when you are used to constant movement, stillness can feel like absence. But it is not absence. It is presence. It is the space where clarity returns. And as that clarity returns, something else happens. Your confidence begins to rebuild. Not in a loud or dramatic way, but in a steady, grounded way. You begin to trust the signal you receive. You begin to recognize what aligns and what does not without needing external confirmation. You begin to move with a sense of direction that feels natural instead of forced. This is what happens when the voice is no longer overshadowed. You are not starting over. You are resuming awareness. And from this point forward, you will begin to notice things more quickly. You will recognize misalignment sooner. You will respond with greater clarity, and that will change the way you move through everything that comes next. Because the voice you almost missed is now becoming clear again. Type "I hear the voice" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8080 is now restoring your spiritual awareness and inner guidance. There comes a moment, and you may already be standing in it, where distraction is no longer harmless. It is no longer something you can brush off, explain away, or delay dealing with. It reaches a point where it begins to cost you something real. Not just time, not just energy, but direction. This is what Archangel Michael calls the breaking point. The moment where what was once a subtle interference becomes a decisive factor in whether you move forward or remain stuck longer than you were meant to. This is not said to alarm you. It is said to awaken you. Because you are closer to this moment than you realize. Up until now, distractions may have felt inconvenient, frustrating, even exhausting, but manageable. You could recover from them. You could regain your focus eventually. You can push through. But what happens when the timing becomes more critical? What happens when the opportunity in front of you requires immediate clarity, immediate presence, immediate discernment? That is where distraction becomes dangerous. Archangel Michael says, there is a line where delay begins, and most do not see it until they have crossed it. And that line is not obvious. It is not marked. It is crossed quietly, gradually, through small decisions that seem insignificant in the moment. Choosing to postpone focus. Choosing to engage with something that drains you. Choosing to ignore the internal signal that tells you to step back. Each of these moments feels small, but together they create distance, and that distance turns into delay. Delay in recognizing what is in front of you. Delay in making the decision you need to make. Delay in stepping into what has already been prepared. And the longer that delay continues, the more difficult it becomes to regain the exact position you were meant to hold. You must understand this clearly. The blessing itself is not fragile. What is fragile is your alignment with it. Because alignment is what allows you to recognize, receive, and respond when the moment arrives. There are people who come very close to their breakthrough and miss it. Not because they were unworthy, not because it was taken from them, but because they were not fully present when it appeared. Their attention was divided. Their mind was elsewhere. Their discernment was clouded just enough to overlook what was right in front of them. This is the reality Archangel Michael is warning you about. And this is why the urgency has increased. Because you are not far from what had been forming. You are not in a distant phase of preparation anymore. You are near the point of transition. And in this phase, even small distractions carry greater weight than before. You may already feel this, a sense that things are becoming more serious, that your choices feel more significant, that your awareness is being called to a higher level. That is not pressure, that is proximity. The closer you get, the more precise your alignment must become. But here is the shift that changes everything. Because you are not unaware anymore. You are seeing the pattern. You are recognizing the strategy. You are understanding the timing. And that awareness places you in a completely different position than before. You are no longer drifting toward delay unconsciously. You are standing at the edge of it, fully aware of what is at stake. And awareness gives you the ability to choose differently. You can pause where you once rushed. You can step back where you once engaged. You can protect your focus where you once allowed it to scatter. These decisions may seem small, but in this moment they are everything. Archangel Michael is not asking you to be perfect. He is asking you to be present. To recognize when something is pulling you away from clarity and to choose not to follow it. To understand that not every impulse deserves your attention. To realize that your focus is not something to give away freely, especially now. Because what is coming will require you to be fully there. Not partially. Not distracted. Not divided. Fully present. This is the difference between stepping into your next phase with clarity or watching it pass by while you are occupied with something that does not truly matter. So take this moment seriously, not with fear but with intention. Because you are not being warned after the fact. You are being warned before the line is crossed. And that means you still have full control over how this unfolds. This is your opportunity to stop the delay before it begins. This is your opportunity to stand fully in alignment before the moment arrives. And this is your opportunity to meet what is coming exactly where you are meant to be. Type "I stay present" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9090 is now protecting your timing and alignment. As this message reaches deeper into your awareness, understand this truth. Every moment of clarity you receive is not just for you. It is meant to flow through you into others who are still lost in distraction. When you choose to support this mission through super thanks for the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a channel. You are sowing light into souls that are still searching for direction. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, and it will return to you." And this is your moment to act in alignment with that living promise. I feel this strongly. I am being called to respond, not later, not someday, but now. Your giving becomes a prophetic act, a seed that unlocks clarity not only for others, but for your own path. You not delay this response. Step forward, release your seed, and allow heaven to multiply what you place in motion today. There is something happening around you right now that you cannot see with your natural eyes, but you are beginning to feel it with increasing intensity. It is not imagination. It is not emotion. It is presence. Because as the pressure increased, as the distractions multiplied, as the patterns tried to tighten around your focus, something else stepped in. Something greater. Something intentional. Archangel Michael has not been distant from this process. He has been active within it. You must understand this clearly. You have not been navigating this season alone. While you were trying to make sense of what you were feeling, while you were questioning why things seemed off, while you were pushing through moments of confusion and fatigue, there has been intervention taking place. Quiet, precise, and deliberate. Not to remove every challenge instantly, but to prevent those challenges from overwhelming you completely. Archangel Michael says you were never unprotected. You were being preserved. And that distinction matters more than you realize. Because preservation does not always feel like protection in the moment. Sometimes it feels like delay. Sometimes it feels like restriction. Sometimes it feels like things not moving the way you expected. But what you did not see with what you were being shielded from. There were situations that could have pulled you further off course, but something blocked them. There were decisions you could have made that would have led to greater confusion, but something caused you to hesitate. There were moments where things did not work out, and you did not understand why, but those outcomes were not random. They were intervention. This is how protection had been operating in your life. Not always by removing difficulty, but by redirecting your path in ways that kept you closer to alignment than you would have been otherwise. And now, as you step closer to what has been prepared, the protection is becoming more active, more intentional, more direct. Because the closer you get, the more resistance tries to appear. Not necessarily in obvious ways, but through subtle pressures, through increased distractions, through moments where your focus is tested more intensely than before. And in those moments, intervention becomes more visible if you know how to recognize it. Archangel Michael is not only guarding your path, he is influencing your awareness. He is strengthening your ability to discern what is aligned and what is not. He is creating space between you and what is trying to pull you away. He is standing in the unseen, assuring that what is meant for you is not disrupted by what is not. This does not mean you will not face moments of distraction. It means those distractions will not have the same power over you as they once did. Because now, you are not only becoming aware of the strategy, you are being supported in resisting it. There is a shift happening even now as you listen to this. A subtle but undeniable strengthening within you. A sense that you are not as easily pulled as before. That you can pause more quickly. That you can recognize misalignment sooner. That you can step back instead of being drawn in automatically. That is not something you created on your own. That is assistance. That is protection becoming active within your awareness. Archangel Michael says, I do not remove your responsibility. I reinforce your strength. And this is where your role becomes clear. Because protection does not replace your action. It supports it. It strengthens it. It makes it more effective. But you still must choose. You still must decide where your attention goes. You still must respond to the awareness that is being given to you. You still must step away from what you now recognize as misaligned. But you are not doing it alone. There is a covering around your focus now. A reinforcement around your clarity. A presence that is helping you hold your position in a way that feels more stable than before. And this is happening for a reason. Because what is coming requires stability. It requires you to stand in your awareness without being easily shaken. It requires you to maintain clarity even when external noise tries to increase. And that level of steadiness is being strengthened within you now. You are being prepared not just to receive what is coming, but to hold it, to sustain it, to move forward with it without falling back into the patterns that once pulled you away. This is the purpose of the intervention. Not just to get you to the moment, but to keep you aligned beyond it. So recognize this. Acknowledge it. Do not dismiss the subtle ways you have been guided, protected, redirected. Because the more you recognize it, the more you align with it. And the more you align with it, the stronger your position becomes. You are not exposed. You are covered. You are not alone. You are supported. And right now, in this exact moment, that protection is actively surrounding your next step. Type "I am protected" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1111 is now surrounding your path with divine protection and strength. And now listen closely, because this is the moment where everything begins to turn. This is where what felt heavy starts to lift, where what felt unclear begins to sharpen, and where what seemed distant suddenly feels close, almost within reach. Because Archangel Michael is making something unmistakably clear now. The shift you have been sensing is not coming someday, it is near. Closer than you have allowed yourself to fully believe. You have already done more than you realize. You have seen the pattern. You have recognized the distraction. You have begun to reclaim your focus. And as soon as that process begins, as soon as your awareness rises and your attention returns, something else activates. Movement. Not chaotic movement, not overwhelming change, but precise, intentional forward motion. This is what happens when distraction loses its grip. Clarity returns first. You begin to see things in a way that feels almost surprising. Situations that once confused you suddenly make sense. Decisions that once felt complicated become simple. You no longer feel the need to overanalyze everything because your discernment becomes sharper. You recognize what aligns without needing excessive confirmation. That is the first sign that the shift has begun. And comes momentum. Not forced effort, not constant pushing, but a natural progression. Things begin to move with less resistance. Conversations happen at the right time. Opportunities appear in ways that feel aligned rather than random. You begin to notice that you are no longer chasing clarity. Clarity is meeting you where you are. And that changes how you move. Archangel Michael says, when you are aligned, what is meant for you finds you without confusion. And this is the state you are entering now. A state where you are not constantly questioning every step. A state where your awareness guides your movement with a quiet confidence. But there is something important you must understand about this shift. It will not feel overwhelming. It will not feel dramatic in a way that disrupts everything at once. It will feel natural. It will feel like things are finally falling into place. And because of that, it can be easy to underestimate it. Do not make that mistake. Because what feels simple now is the result of everything that has been happening behind the scenes. The preparation, the protection, the realignment, all of it leads to this moment where things begin to open without force. You may notice that certain things begin to fall away completely. Distractions that once held your attention no longer have the same pull. Conversations that once drained you no longer feel necessary. Habits that once scattered your focus begin to lose their appeal. That is not loss. That is release. That is space being created for what is coming. And what is coming will require that space. Because the blessing that has been forming is not meant to compete with distraction. It is meant to be received in clarity. It is meant to be recognized without confusion. It is meant to be stepped into with awareness. This is why everything you have gone through in this process matters. Because without that awareness, you might have overlooked what is now becoming visible. Archangel Michael is emphasizing this now because the shift will test your consistency. Not in a harsh way, but in a subtle one. There will still be moments where distraction attempts to return. There will still be moments where your attention is pulled. But the difference now is that you will recognize it immediately. And that recognition allows you to return to alignment without losing momentum. This is what stability looks like. You are no longer swinging between clarity and confusion. You are holding your position. You are maintaining your awareness. You are moving forward without being easily pulled back. And as you do this, the shift continues to unfold. What once felt delayed begins to accelerate. What once felt uncertain begins to solidify. What once felt distant begins to arrive. This is not something you need to chase. This is something you are stepping into. So remain steady. Remain aware. Remain intentional with your focus. Because the closer you get, the more important it becomes to hold the clarity you have regained. You are not waiting anymore. You are transitioning. And what you are stepping into now will confirm everything you have been sensing. Type "I step into the shift" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activating forward movement and divine momentum in your life. Now this is the moment where everything becomes personal. Not theoretical. Not observational. Not something happening around you. This is where the responsibility shifts directly to you. Because up until now, you have been shown the pattern, the distraction, the strategy, the protection, and the shift that is unfolding. But now, Archangel Michael steps forward with a clear and undeniable command. Rise into alignment. Do not remain passive in a moment that requires action. This is where many people hesitate. Not because they do not understand, but because action requires change. And change, even when it is right, can feel uncomfortable. It requires you to move differently than you have before. It requires you to break habits that once felt normal. It requires you to step away from what is familiar in order to step into what is aligned. But understand this clearly. You are not being asked to rise without support. You are being asked to respond to everything that has already been placed within you. There is a difference. You already know what needs to shift. You have already felt it. You have already recognized what drains your focus, what pulls your attention, what disrupts your clarity. You have already seen the patterns that no longer serve you. The command to rise is not asking you to discover something new. It is asking you to act on what you now clearly understand. Archangel Michael says, awareness without action returns you to the same cycle. And this is the point where the cycle either breaks permanently or continues quietly. Because knowledge alone does not create change. Action does. This is where you reclaim your authority. Not in a loud or dramatic way, but in a consistent, grounded way. Through the decisions you make with your time. Through the way you protect your focus. Through the way you respond when distraction attempts to return. Through the boundaries you begin to establish with what you allow into your space. These decisions may seem small on the surface, but in this moment, they are defining your direction. You are not just reacting to life anymore. You are shaping how you move through it. There is something powerful that happens when you fully step into this role. Your confidence begins to stabilize. Not because everything around you is perfect, but because you are no longer uncertain about how to respond. You are no longer easily pulled in different directions. You are no longer giving your attention away without intention. You are choosing. And then choice is what secures your position. Because the blessing that is coming into your life is not just something you receive once. It is something you step into and continue moving with. And your ability to sustain it depends on the level of alignment you maintain. This is why this moment matters so much. Because you are not just preparing to receive something. You are preparing to hold it, to build with it, to move forward without falling back into what once disrupted your focus. Archangel Michael is not speaking this as a suggestion. He is speaking it as a directive. Because he sees what is ahead. He sees the potential of what is being placed in your path. And he knows that if you fully rise into alignment now, you will meet it without hesitation, without confusion, without delay. But if you remain passive, if you acknowledge the awareness but do not act on it, the cycle risks repeating. Not because you are incapable, but because you did not fully step into your authority. You are being called to rise above that, to move differently, to choose with intention, to protect your focus as something valuable, not something disposable. Because your focus is directly connected to your direction, and your direction is directly connected to what you are about to step into. There is no need to wait for a perfect moment to begin. This is the moment. Not because everything around you is settled, but because everything within you is becoming clear. This is where alignment becomes action. This is where awareness becomes movement. This is where you step fully into the role you were meant to carry in this process. And once you do, everything that follows will meet you at a higher level. Type "I rise now" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1313 is now activating strength, discipline, and divine authority in your life. This is the final moment. Not the end of your journey, but the closing of this specific window. This precise, intentional, divinely timed warning that has reached you for a reason. And now, Archangel Michael steps forward one last time, not to repeat what has already been said, but to seal it with authority. To make it clear that what you have heard is not optional insight, it is instruction. You were not brought here to simply listen. You were brought here to respond. Because everything has now been revealed. The distraction, the pattern, the strategy, the protection, the shift, the role you must take. Nothing has been hidden from you anymore. And that means you are no longer in a position of uncertainty. You are in a position of decision. Archangel Michael says, what you do after this moment determines how you meet what is coming. And that is the truth you must carry forward. Because the blessing is not theoretical, is not distant. It is not something you continue waiting for indefinitely. It is approaching. It is for me. It is aligning with your path right now. But here is the final warning. Do not return to unconscious distraction after becoming aware. Do not go back to giving your attention away freely after understanding its value. Do not fall back into patterns that you have now clearly seen. Because returning to what you have outgrown creates a deeper level of delay than before. Not because the blessing disappears, but because your alignment with it weakens. You are no longer unaware. And awareness carries responsibility. This is where many people fail. Not because they never received guidance, but because they treated the moment of clarity as temporary. They felt it. They understood it, but they did not hold on to it. They allowed themselves to drift back into the same cycles, thinking they would have another chance to realign later. But Archangel Michael makes this clear. Moments of clarity are not to be postponed. They are to be acted upon immediately. Because timing matters. You are standing in a moment where your awareness is sharp, your understanding is clear, and your position is strong. This is the exact moment where your response must match what you have received. Not partially, fully. This does not mean perfection. It means intention. It means choosing, again and again, to protect your focus, to remain present, to act on what you now know is aligned, to refuse what you now recognize as distraction. Because from this point forward, everything becomes clearer. You will begin to see the difference between what pulls you forward and what pulls you back. You will begin to feel the difference between what strengthens your focus and what weakens it. You will begin to recognize alignment faster than before, and that clarity is your responsibility to maintain. This is the final declaration. You are not the same as you were before this message. You cannot go back to seeing things the same way. You cannot ignore what has been revealed to you, because something has shifted within you. Something has awakened. Something has aligned. And now, you stand at the threshold of what is next. Archangel Michael declares, you are ready. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are aware. And awareness, when acted upon, opens the door to what has already been prepared. So step forward, not later. Out. Step forward in clarity. Step forward in focus. Step forward in alignment. Because what is coming into your life will meet you exactly where you stand. And if you stand in awareness, you will receive it fully. If you stand in distraction, you risk delaying what is already within reach. This is the moment. This is the decision. This is the shift. And it begins with you. Type I choose alignment in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1414 is now sealing your focus, your clarity, and your path forward. As this message reaches its completion, understand this deeply. What you have received was not just for you to hold. It was for you to release into the lives of others who are still lost in distraction, still waiting for clarity, still searching for direction. Every seed you sow into this mission becomes a light that breaks through someone else's darkness. The word declares, those who sow in tears shall reap in joy, and right now, your giving becomes a living act of that promise. I feel this strongly within this moment. I am stepping forward not just as a listener, but as a vessel of impact. When you give through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description and QR code, you are not donating. You are activating a harvest of souls being reached, awakened, and aligned. Do not delay this response. Step into obedience now, release your seed, and allow heaven to multiply it into blessings that will return to you in ways you cannot yet see.